Hey, everybody. Welcome back to my favorite hour of Thursday, AWS Power Hour Machine Learning, the show where we are here to talk about and show off how to leverage machine learning to make your apps more intelligent. I'm Kirsten Dupart. I'm the lead machine learning technical curriculum developer. This is my friend John Dion. He's a senior cloud technologist, and we are both here from AWS Training and Certification. John, we made it to episode 2. I am super excited. How are you feeling? How are you doing?
I feel amazing. So do you see where I am, right? On my boat. So this is awesome. So how's Seattle? Is it raining?
Oh, you know what? Actually, it is very, very hot. This is the time of year that Seattleites try and hide from people so they don't know how nice it actually gets. So everybody, you did not hear that. It is definitely not mid-80s in Seattle.
So and like with all that sun, I had to put some sunscreen on. So I think I still have some right over there, right?
Little bit, yeah.
Yeah, we're good. Okay, so so for real though, so last week was awesome. We had a great show, so I want to repeat this for this week for sure. If we can get as much interaction from the chat as we had last week, that will be amazing. So hello to everyone that is just joining us and turning on. That's awesome, tuning in.
Yeah. Speaking of, last week was super fun for me, especially since that was my first stream ever. You guys, I've never done this before. One of the things that I wasn't expecting, but absolutely loved and probably could have stopped and done the entire show was talking to everybody. And that started with seeing where everyone was from. I remember we had people from Nigeria, Hong Kong, Costa Rica, Singapore, representation from all over North America. And that was just really cool for me to see.
Oh yeah, like speaking of all of those places and time zone, I think this is a good time to remind everybody that this show runs every Thursday at this time, right? 4 p.m. Pacific time or 7 p.m. Eastern time, right? My time.
Yep.
And yeah.
Yep. Good reminder. So chat, where are you guys connecting from today? While you throw your locations in the chat, I am sitting here in Seattle. Thank you, John, on your boat in Toronto. I know most of our chat moderators are on the East Coast in the US. Is that right, guys? Minneapolis, Virginia, Portland, Boston.
San Fran. Yeah, how are you? That's awesome.
Woo! Wow. This is just, see, I could just read and talk to these.
Woo! That is cool. Costa Rica. Oh, nice.
Oh my gosh, awesome. So
we'll feel great, right? So
yeah.
I got a little bit of that here. So
so again, just that it's really cool for us to see. I'm also curious if we've got some returning friends. So if you guys were with us last week, will you give like a yes or a +1 or an alien emoji if you were hanging out? Lima, Peru. Oh my gosh, this is so cool.
Oh yeah, we got some +1. That is awesome.
+1.
Welcome back. Welcome back.
I feel like we're all friends now. This is great. This is awesome. So really cool group of returnees, probably some new people in there as well. In any event, welcome back, Earthlings.
So I agree. This is awesome. So now for anyone that is just joining us this week, I want to repeat something that we said before. We want to hear from you guys in the chat. So during the show, just type something in there. I know you need to be logged in to be able to post something in the chat, but it's worth it. Then you can antagonize us by sending us funny jokes and then making us barf and laugh during the show, or post real questions and actually interact with us. So I will be reading those, and Kirsten will be as well, and we are going to be answering all of those questions. So now, Kirsten, I'm very excited to kick off this particular episode, as we're going to be moving from last week's overall introduction to machine learning to getting really hands-on with one service, one of the AI services today. And in this second episode, it's all about Amazon Textract. It's the AI service that helps you automatically extract text and data from scanned documents.
Yeah, and I'm actually really excited to learn more about this service. So I'm glad we're here. I'm glad we're doing this.
Awesome. So what we are going to do today, right? So if I go into my whiteboard, so for the next 60 minutes or 55 minutes right now, we'll walk you through first a quick intro. So quick intro into Textract. So that's going to be our first step. Once we're done with the first quick intro, Amazon Textract, right, which is you probably already think of Textract, like I said, the recognition of characters and stuff like that. It looks like an optical character recognition or OCR service, but I assure you that it is way beyond that. So, but I don't want you I don't really want to spoil the show right now. So there is a bunch of different things that we want to touch on that side. After doing this, what we're going to do is demos. So multiple demos that we have that are ready for you. So one where we're going to go into the AWS Management Console to see how it works, because that's how you're supposed to be starting. The GUI is a good place to start. But then afterward, you probably want to go a little bit deeper. So that's why you want to do it the hard way, or the other way, which is going over it using the SDK for going out and doing that. So after we're done with this, there's something with AI services that we talked about last weekend, which was a percentage of confidence. And there's always a confidence level that isn't always 100%, right?
Definitely not 100%, John. We can't all be like you.
I'll take it. I'll take it. I know. So to make that artificial intelligence as confident as us, Earthlings, right? We just need to merge the both of us, the AI and the humans. So how do we do that? Well, we're going to talk about it into the next demo. So that's where we're going to go after.
Exactly. And then like we do with all of our episodes, after the demos, we'll wrap up with just a couple of quick questions to go over the things that we've talked about today. And then we're going to send you guys off with some really cool hands-on resources if you want to complete those prior to our next episode. To do all of the stuff John's been mentioning, we have a really great guest coming on, Kashif Imran. Kashif is a principal solutions architect here at AWS, and he specializes in all of our AI services. So super excited to get him on here. And actually, in fact, let's do that now. What's up, Kashif?
Hey, Kashif. Nice to see you on the show.
Hey, John and Kirsten. Really excited to be on the show.
Oh, that's good. We're excited to have you. Really excited to have you and to have you help us get into Amazon Textract.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Before we do that, though, so last week we talked about how you can find yourself in the world of machine learning from a whole bunch of different paths. Aliens, outer space, pesky coworkers, curiosity. What's your ML journey, Kashif? How'd you get here?
So sure. So I'm a developer at heart, and my machine learning journey started as, how can I, take advantage of, for example, existing machine learning models and then bring intelligence to the applications that I'm building. And as last few years that I've been helping, and working with different engineers as well as data scientists across different Amazon teams, for example, Amazon Alexa, I was working with the teams to help them see how they can take advantage of different AWS services to help with their machine learning end-to-end lifecycle. I work with a lot of AWS customers now who are specifically looking into computer vision and solve complex business problems and solve those problems at scale.
Very cool. That's so awesome. Again, we're really excited to have you here. So John, before Kashif schools us on Textract, we've mentioned last week a couple of times. Can we recap a couple of those big takeaways for maybe some people who weren't here with us? John?
Nope. So right here.
Definitely not. See ya.
Definitely not, right? So we're now onto my slide from last week, the ML stack. So I think the big thing to highlight from last week was the AWS ML stack, which you can see right here on the screen, right? It's our 3 levels of services designed to help with a range of experience, right? So technical levels that you may have, or build machine learning solutions in the cloud, but with all of these services. So for our super users, right? So who wants to customize as they build, train, tune, deploy, we have this bottom level, right? At the bottom of this stack right there. And then what you can do in there, so like if this is for your data scientists, your ML developers, if they want to go and then they may know this infrastructure, they want to play with EC2 instances and machine virtual machines. But if you were with us last week, what you will remember that it's like buying your own cow. Oops. And somewhere in there where I actually add my screen. So this is buying your own cow and your own farm. And then with that, you make butter. So that's the hard way, right? You do everything on your own. So the next one that you can do that, right? The next level that we have here, the middle level, is it's centered around Amazon SageMaker. And it still allows experienced users like ML developers, data scientists, and researchers to create custom ML models, but without having to worry about managing infrastructure. So in my example, that will be like buying milk and churn it to make butter. So a little bit easier than owning your own cow, right? And owning your own farm, but yeah, that's what it will be. And that's all about the SageMaker service. If you're interested in learning more about this level, right, that centered level about SageMaker, SageMaker Fridays is a broadcast on Twitch. That is, well, it's happening tomorrow. It's Friday tomorrow. It's a good one. You should probably check it out if you're interested in that layer.
Yeah, it is a good one. But John, we're really here to talk about that top level, right? That's where we're focused. After all, this is a show about getting people the tools so that they can get up and running quickly. And that's really what those AI services at the top do. Amazon Lex, Textract, Comprehend, they're all fully managed and pre-trained, so you really can add machine learning quickly to your workloads using those APIs. Computer vision, speech, natural language processing, recommendations, stuff like that. You can add these capabilities to your apps without any ML knowledge. And last week we kind of talked about it. It really is, you do need some dev knowledge, but it really is as easy as using those APIs. Keeping with our analogy from last week, this would be just like going to the store and simply buying the butter, right? Just buy the butter.
Just buy the butter. That is way easier than everything else that is there.
Yeah. And Kashif, you're talking to people about the ML stack all of the time. Did we do this justice? Is there anything else or a way that you like to explain our AWS ML stack to people?
No, absolutely. I love the analogy that you gave here. And I'll just add on to, as you mentioned, at the AI services layer, just buying the butter. This is what I hear from the developers all the time. They just love the fact that at AWS, we are taking care of building and training all the machine learning models, deploying them in highly available, highly scalable, and highly secure environment, and exposing all of that functionality using very simple to use APIs. And as developers, one additional thing actually I want to mention is that they can call APIs directly, but we make it further easier for them, where we then provide different SDKs. So whether you are a Java developer, Node.js developer, Python, .NET, and a variety of other frameworks, you just pick up your favorite language that you love to code in and just use that SDK, and you can start taking advantage of these APIs and build really intelligent and powerful applications.
John hates Node. Right, John?
No, like, come on. It is the only programming language everyone should be using. Period. That's end of story. That's it. So, all right, Textract. Let's get to it, Kashif. So why this service? Why should we care about Textract?
So as you mentioned, Textract is a machine learning service which makes it really easy to extract text and structured data from documents. But I get this question all the time, why is that important? It's because if you think about it, documents are still the primary tool of communication across wide industries, whether it's legal, finance, healthcare, and so on. They're still dealing with a lot of either paper-based documents or scanned documents, such as images and PDFs. And as we've been working with our customers across different computer vision services that they're using, this is one problem we continue to hear from customers they wanted us to solve, to make it really easy for them to process these scanned documents and ability to get text and structured data out of these.
Okay, so that makes sense. You're looking to get structured data out of these documents. But don't we have this kind of thing? Hasn't this technology been around for a while? Like, I know OCR technology is used to convert PDFs, for instance, into documents that you can edit. So what's the difference between something like that and Textract?
Yeah, because I remember like I don't know, 10 years ago, I was using a pen to try to read my books, right? So that was extracting that so I can search it. I love that thing.
Absolutely. And I wish most of the documents that businesses are processing were just, flat lines or bag of words, if you will. And that's the challenge, right? So when businesses are processing these documents, they are complex. They're not just, a bunch of lines.
Right.
And business customers are interested in extracting structured data, which in many cases, for example, you might have, business related entities. For example, you might be processing different application forms. There might be things like radio buttons or checkboxes, right?
Mhm.
So in that case, you want to know whether, some of those options are selected or not. In addition to that, uh, so OCR just give you that bag of words. And in
Right.
the past, what customers had to do for these type of complicated documents is then create some sort of template. So what you can have is, okay, OCR will just give me a bunch of lines. I'll define some sort of templates and then kind of try to process those documents. The issue is, in fact, a couple of issues. One is it takes a lot of development time to create those
Right.
templates and a lot of management overhead to then to maintain them. And templates are brittle. Anytime there is a slight change, now those templates that you have written, they can easily break. And the other interesting thing is, if you look at any of these documents, many of those documents, which we might think as like standard documents, as an example, a W-2, a tax form in US, for example, we might think it's such a standard document, but if
Or
you look at it,
T1,
there
right?
can be.
It's the T1 in Canada. I think that's ours, right? So
Super fun.
I don't
Yeah.
know
Yeah,
W2, no clue. We're T's over
sure.
here.
All right. Well, we got W-2, so yeah. But looking at our W-2, even for example, there are hundreds of variations of those. So it means if you're
Right.
using some of the traditional OCR technologies, you have to define all of those templates, and as I mentioned, all the development overhead and management overhead, which then results into cost and all of those challenges.
Fair enough. And then so that all looks like to me okay. So I do recognition of this text and all of these things, but this is a machine learning show. So what does Textract has to do with machine learning?
Absolutely. So the idea here is when you send Textract document, as I said, we don't want you to define all those templates. So what we do behind the scene is you send Textract a document, and we want this to read a document like any regular user would read a document, right? So we have built different deep learning models where these document goes through those models, and they try to read those documents like humans will read. They look at different structure, whether there are tables in there, whether you have forms, different types of, as I mentioned, there are checkboxes. So those deep learning models are trained to detect different types of structures in those documents and then return you an information in very, easy way as a JSON structure.
Huh. Huh, that looks pretty cool. So I feel like a demo is coming on.
A demo?
A
Dun, dun,
demo.
dun, demo.
Absolutely.
So let's do it.
All right. Yep, let's do it. So in this case, I'm here in the AWS console for Amazon Textract. Let me click on try Amazon Textract. So we're going to use this example document on the left side. So if you look at this document, there are different type of structure information in this case. So, we have a bunch of text, but this top part of the document you see have some form type structure, right? So there are things like full name, phone number, home address, and so on. And then we have our table at the bottom. So Textract provides three core features that I'll just go through in this demo. So the very first one is the raw text. This is kind of like what Kirsten you mentioned earlier about the traditional OCR, if you will, which can just give you bag of words and lines and so on.
Yep.
Textract in this case, provides you all of that. In addition, it gives you things like bounding box information. So for example, if I click on this raw text that is extracted, and I click on this word, we're able to highlight that because we know where this word is, in this document, or where this line is, and so on. So that's the first part. The next one is where, as a business, a lot of times when you're processing these type of documents, what you probably care about is, hey, don't just give me these lines. What I really care about is what is the field full name in this document, for example, or maybe what is the home address in this document. And you can see in this case, Textract is able to extract these key value pairs, if you will, and have populated these values here.
A little
So
bit more
like
meaning in there. Yeah.
Yeah, so like in code, that will be really easy. I get back some JSON data and I can just dig into it, right? And then I'm like dot full
Absolutely.
name and I get that data. It's way easier than trying to do a search in that entire document that I maybe be able to parse in another way. That's pretty cool.
Yep. Absolutely. And even if you get, these, in this case, the structure is pretty simple, but you can get very interesting type of forms where, the full name might be above this, right? So a lot of these forms or applications, sometimes the label could be, above, and then you have values might be below them and so on. And that's where we have trained Textract. So the structure doesn't need to be just like a key colon type value structure. It can be all sorts of interesting structures, and we'll be able to see that this is a form, a key value type structure, and detect those.
People are
Awesome.
having a lot of fun in the chat talking about creating automated expense report submissions. So fun.
Absolutely.
Yes, I need that. Well, not so much anymore, but soon.
Not so much anymore. Yeah.
So continuing with the next feature, which is the table extraction. So again, there is a lot of use cases where you might be getting documents which have tabular data. And in many cases, you might, I just heard about, expense reports. So there can be use cases where, you want to maybe go through these rows and do some sort of validation, for different amounts in the cell. You might have, a column where you might want to do some sum, or you want to do some aggregation or those kind of things. So in this case, you can see Textract. When we send this document, extracted this table, and we are kind of listing all the values from different rows and cells here. And again, for each one of this structure that's detected, you get the content. And for each element, you get things like a confidence score. So as you are building your applications, you can, kind of see, depending on the application, set some threshold that makes sense for those. It gives you a bounding box information that you get, as well as some additional metadata and so on.
That's really cool. And then again, with code, I can totally see that I can like do a for loop across these two things, and it's just an array of array. Like that's way easier than when I just receive start, end date, employment name, position, and then now I kind of have to know the document how it is to be able to kind of catch it. Hey, no, that's a start date. Yeah, I dig that. Like way easier for me to code with this.
Absolutely.
Yeah, very cool. So Kashif, I have a question for you, but first I want to welcome anybody who might have just joined. Just real quick, I'm Kirsten. This is my friend John. We're here with another awesome guest this week, our friend Kashif, for our second episode of AWS Power Hour Machine Learning. We're here because we want to get people comfortable using our AI services. We're having a good time because we're all friends, but we really are here to get people comfortable using these things. And we want to show you that you don't need to be a data scientist. I am definitely not one.
Me neither.
To build with ML. And that's really what the show is all about. Okay, so back to my question. Oh, hi, kangaroo in the chat. Back to my question. So as a developer, people really like the console, but we also want to see how this works in the code. Do you think you could help us out and show us social stuff?
Absolutely. And as John mentioned earlier,
Sweet.
The console is the place where you can just quickly go, drag and drop a bunch of your sample documents, quickly see how Textract is able to extract, raw text as well as key values and tables. But as developer, I know we quickly want to jump in the code and say, hey, show me how does it work. So let's jump into the code and see how easy it is to call Textract API and all the things that you're seeing here about form extraction, how much code you have to write for that. So I'm just going to use an example here where most of these code samples, they're all published in an AWS GitHub sample repo that you'll be getting the link in the chat. But let me go ahead and run one of the examples here. So we'll go ahead and do, for example, a form detection. So before I do that, let me show you the document that we're going to use for this. So this is going to be the same document that expense. Actually, in this case, so in this case, we'll just use the same employment app. So the document we're going to use is the same document that you saw in the console, which has fields like full name, phone number, and so on. So let
Awesome.
me go ahead and run this sample, and then I'll walk you through what each of these lines are doing. So this is just an example in Python. So I'm just going to run Python forms.py. So what it's going to do is I have uploaded this image into my S3 bucket. It's going to call Textract and say, go ahead and process this document in the S3 bucket. And once I get the JSON back, it's going to go ahead and show that information here. So let me first show you the output, and then I'll walk you through what each of the lines are doing. So in this case, you can see the keys that we were showing earlier in the console, like phone number, home address, full name, and so on. We're able to extract those and showing those values here.
All right.
So getting into the code sample, in this case, we're using Python. So we're using the Python SDK. In the first line, we just import that Boto3. Next two lines, I'm showing here is the S3 bucket that I'm using. And this is the document that I have put in that S3 bucket.
Okay.
At line 9, what you need to do is you initialize a client. So depending on which AWS service you want to call, the SDK provides you, a simple way that you can initialize a client, and then you can use that client to make API calls for that specific service. So in this case, because we want to interact with Textract, we're just saying boto3.client, and then asking for the Textract client.
Makes sense.
Yep. Next, there are a couple of APIs that you can call for Amazon Textract. I'm actually using the Analyze document. So I just want to talk a little bit about the two main APIs that Textract has. One is called the detect text, and the other one is called the Analyze document. And the difference is, if, for example, you only care about just the OCR, just the bag of words and lines, then you can just call detect text. But if you have a use case where you also want to extract forms as well as tables, then you can use Analyze document API. And you can see it's a very, very straightforward call, right? You just pass the document that you have, and you can define which feature type. So for example, do you want just the form, or do you want just the tables, or do you want both of them? So in this case, I'm just saying, hey, process this document, and I only care about key values.
So like here, this client SDK that is right there, right? So it's taking care of everything HTTP related, right? This is an actual HTTPS request that is being made to Textract, right? I'm guessing.
Absolutely. So what SDK is doing is actually behind the scene taking care of calling the API, all of that HTTP request and response, all the best practices. For example, if maybe there is some transient networking errors and maybe your request fails, maybe, as a best practices, you can just do some retry logic. All of that is all baked into SDK. So as a developer, you don't even have to worry about those. You don't need to know where that HTTPS endpoint is that I need to call. All of that is baked into SDK. You just have one line of code to initialize the client and then say .analyze document, and you get the response back as JSON.
It looks pretty simple, like very similar to as simple as the console, right? So that looks good to me.
And actually, there's a really good question just got posed in the chat, and I think I had a similar question. Can Textract process large, like multi-page documents with hundreds or like thousands of pages? Seeing it on one page is great, but can it handle like multi-form documents?
Absolutely. So in this case, I showed an example using an image, but you can call Textract and provide, for example, a PDF document with hundreds or thousands of pages. And in this case, you saw I was calling the sync API, but Textract also provides an asynchronous version of both like detect text and analyze document API. So the idea there is you can call Textract and say, here is my large PDF document, and then forget about it. Let Textract process it. And then once Textract is done processing that large document, it can notify you using an SNS topic. And then you can go ahead and get the JSON response and then process it. So that way you can efficiently do that process instead of waiting for that long document to get processed and wait for that to complete.
Right. Like that's really important for everyone to understand. Like a lot of our API calls are being made synchronous or asynchronous, right? So like you said, the client really has to stay there, right? I want a coffee, you hold your hand and then you keep your hand there until finally the person makes your coffee and gives it to you. But I don't think anyone is ever going to make me a coffee standing right here. So the asynchronous way well, you hand your hand, and then they say, "Yup, I'm gonna make it." So you just turn around, and then you play on your boat for a little while, and
Go grab a
then when you're
cocktail
ready,
on your boat.
oh yeah, and then then when you're ready, you come back, and then it's ready, right? So someone just has to notify me that, hey, it's ready. So that's the asynchronous way. You choose whichever one you want. It just depends how long it takes to make, right?
That's absolutely correct. And if you have like a mobile capture use case where maybe a user is, have a phone and they're taking a picture of the document, it's a super low latency type use case. You'd probably call the sync API. And as Kristen mentioned, if you have a large document with hundreds of thousands of pages, it makes sense to call async API.
Kashif, there's another question in the chat about, so you're talking about the documents being stored in S3, which is AWS's storage service. Can the document be passed as a part of the request and not be stored in S3?
Sure. So when you make a synchronous API call, so as I mentioned about the sync API, you can pass that document either as an S3 object, or you can pass that document as raw bytes. So for example, if it's not stored in S3, you
Okay.
just grab the document from that storage and then pass that as part of that response,
Okay.
Awesome.
as part of the request.
Awesome.
And then I think there is another question around,
Yeah.
I'm not a programmer, like I want to be able to use the question is, can I use the management console to extract a multi-page document? Like, can it be a large document from the console, or there's a limitation there?
Sure. So you can use a multi-page PDF document in the console. The console itself limits the experience to a document with up to 10 pages, but that is not the limit of Textract. So I just want to make sure, if you try like a 100-page document and you see here, it's only 10 pages, that is only the limit of the console because of the experience console try to create. So you can click on, different extracted elements and so on. But when you call the Textract async API, you can have thousands of pages in that PDF document and get all of that response back.
Awesome.
Okay. Awesome.
Cool. All right. So okay, let's keep on going on inside of that demo. So we just sent something to Textract, right? It like basically from your laptop out there, you just call Textract. That's what just happened, right?
Yep. And in this case, we got the response back as JSON. So that JSON has all the structure for every single element that Textract extracted, including element structure for word, for line, for all the keys it detected, for all the values it detected, and if there were, in this case, we didn't have any checkboxes, but if you had, think like checkboxes and radio buttons, all of that structure will be part of this JSON response. So all you have to do is you can just kind of go through that JSON and then extract the specific keys, for example, or values that you're interested in. And that's what we're doing here. So I'm just using a sample parser, which I'm passing this JSON response to. And then I'm able to use that to just iterate over saying, for this page, for each page, wherever all the fields we detected, let's just go and print each one of them. And that's how, you see just with few lines, I was able to print, these values for the from that we got.
Okay.
Awesome.
Because you have these values, again, rest of the sample is just, showing you some additional options where you can say, maybe you don't care about all the fields. The response is giving you everything that you need. And then you can say, all right, let me just look up by a specific key in that JSON response. And then you can just get those key. Or you might want to search, for example, any type of, related fields, for example, and you can kind of do that kind of search within that JSON response. It's just, the idea is you get that JSON response with all the structure that we extracted. And then as a developer, you have the full control on how you want to slice and dice that JSON and you want to use that.
Awesome. I really love these examples, right? So all of them are posted on GitHub, the one that you're using right now. So, and I think Tom just reposted that inside of the chat, which is great. So I'm feeling like I have a better grasp of this service, but I'm still interested in wrapping my head around the common use cases. Like, why will I want to use this? We touched on this a little bit, right? You gave a few examples, but can you get a little bit more specific here? So what are the common use cases that you see with Textract?
Absolutely. And there are a wide variety of use cases that we have seen, customers are using Amazon Textract for. But at a high level, if we look at the top level bucket, if you will, there are three main buckets of the use cases. So the first one is what we see is around search and indexing. So this is where customers want to basically enable really interesting search related use cases. For example, we have seen energy company extract tabular data from decades of historical records. We have seen some hedge funds parsing flat PDF prospectuses, or law firms extracting data from printed and flat discovery materials, and really enabling that search and discovery related use cases.
Kashif, can I ask a question about that? It's in the chat, actually. Speaking of, is it like if we're talking about documents that are really old, how degraded can they be? Is Textract going to pick stuff up if, the ink's faded, or maybe it's a little bit wrinkly or torn or something? Does it have to be a perfectly crisp document for Textract to interact with it?
So that's a very common question, and as we were building the service, we understood, when you're processing these documents, you don't expect documents to be in perfect shape, especially when people are using use cases around mobile capture, for example, right? They could be all sorts of documents. So as part of that Textract pipeline, we have what we call a segmentation rectification pipeline, where as those documents come in, we use a lot of different computer vision and machine learning techniques to still, get the structure of the document and make sure we can return you content with high accuracy.
Like crumbly receipts in my pocket.
Absolutely. We absolutely don't expect you to send the receipts in perfect shape. So that's what, when
for that expense report. Yeah.
And that's what I meant, when we have that segmentation rectification pipeline, is that's exactly what it's dealing with, and making sure that you can still get good accuracy from Textract.
That's so cool. That's awesome.
Awesome.
The second, sorry, go ahead, John.
Yeah. No, I was going to say it's the second use case, right? Like you said, three main topics there.
Sure. So the second bucket of use cases, if you will, what we have seen is around compliance and control. And the idea there is, if you have a bunch of these, scanned documents, which you don't know necessarily, what is in those images, or scanned PDF documents, it's hard to apply different compliance rules. So we have seen, for example, some European or in US enterprises parsing warehouses full of customer contracts to comply with GDPR and some of the other, US related regulatory and other compliance rules. We have seen pharma companies extract marketing information from drug advertisements, for example. And these compliance rules can be important, because once you know exactly what is in those documents, you can apply things like, for how long those documents should maybe retained. Maybe because of some compliance rules, you have to delete those documents after a certain time window. Or maybe certain types of encryption schemes, need to be applied depending on the types of the documents and so on. So that's where Textract really helps you to achieve the compliance and have the control over the documents in your enterprise.
So you're talking about, like, if you wanted to extract and pull out personal information, pull out the PII, right?
Yeah, so absolutely. That's one of the scenario where Textract will give you all of that content, including the keys and the values, and then you can use those. For example, redaction is one criteria. So maybe some of those documents, as you mentioned, PII or some of the other maybe business related fields, need to be redacted. And because Textract is able to give you those specific key values, you can easily go ahead and redact those documents.
Awesome. Very cool.
The third bucket, if you will, is what we have seen is around business automation processes, right? So that's where the idea is you are getting, different documents come in, and instead of going through a manual process to process those documents, you can automate those business processes. So, for example, we have seen, many financial and healthcare businesses, for example, doing that kind of automation process, where financial companies are automating like ingestion of tax related documents, or W-2s and those kind of things. We have seen automotive resellers applying business rules to automate the processing of title documents, for example. And those are just a few examples of that what we have seen in business process automation. And there are many other use cases. These are sort of the top buckets, if you will. We have seen customers even use Textract to get text out and use that to annotate their data, for example, to then build some of their own machine learning models for some of the other use cases that they have.
Wow.
So there's all sorts of interesting use cases. Yeah.
People are so good.
Yeah, and in I saw a question from Exodus, so just a comment. So yes, she is amazing. Good job, Kirsten. So I do agree with that. I
Love
had
it.
to say
Yes.
it. Come on.
Thank you. Yes. Yes. Thank you. You guys are the best. So Kashif, you mentioned, I think I heard you mention redaction. Do you have a demo or something you wanted to share around your search and redaction?
Absolutely. So let me just give you a quick demo of a sample solution, which again, the link can be published in the chat. So here I have a sample solution, which you can get off the GitHub. And this is all powered by Amazon Textract behind the scene. And the idea here is, let's say I go to this portal for the documents and I can upload, a bunch of my documents. I already have a few example documents here. And we have extracted, behind the scene as you upload, Textract gets called, structure gets extracted, and that makes it easier for us to now, for example, do search across these documents. So I search for a keyword, and in this case, instead of different documents, now I'm getting a specific document with some text information. So I see, okay, I have this employment document with the full name Jane in it. So I can go ahead and go to that specific document. So that's sort of the first step of enabling a search experience where you are able to search a relevant document out of a large number of documents. The next step is usually that we have seen customers want to enable the experiences where they say, hey, all right, I have maybe a large scanned PDF document. Okay, we can search this within the browsers, something like this. But sometimes customers have to then download those documents. And once they download that scanned PDF, now you can't do that search anymore. Because Textract is able to give you all the structure of that text and data it extracts, including the bounding box information, etc., you can easily generate a searchable PDF out of that. So for example, in this case, if I download this searchable PDF, so even though the original document was an image, once I click on the PDF and it opens up, let me go ahead and while this PDF loads, you'll see I should be able to just do, for example, Command F or Control F if you're on Windows. And I can search for example, the word full name. And you can see, even though the source for this was an image, but we're able to use Textract to extract the structure and generate a searchable PDF, which now I'm able to select the text and I can copy the text and paste it and so on. So that's about the search experience. Kirsten, as you talked about the redaction, so similarly, because Textract, as we saw earlier in the console, we were able to extract key value structures, and we know where each of those keys and values are. I can just use this UI, for example, to say, all right, maybe for compliance purposes, all the fields where there is a address, maybe they need to be redacted, right? So
Yeah.
I'm in this case just using this UI, but you can imagine, from the automation perspective, you'll probably have some rules set up, whereas these documents come in, the structured data gets extracted, and then you can apply some rules and then redact that information. And then, the redacted document, for example, could be stored and shared differently versus the original document might be stored, in a different data store and apply different types of, security policies and whatnot. So in
Sure.
this case, I have this redacted version of the document where you can see the address fields are redacted. And we have the code sample repo that I used earlier to show you a quick sample. Actually includes this sample, which shows you how you can just take a document, call Textract, and then redact the fields that you're interested in redacting.
Very cool. So
Awesome.
you're talking about redaction. We're talking about PII, and I'm just thinking we've been talking about confidence levels in the chat. Given that machine learning is not 100% accurate all the time, how can I leverage Textract in really sensitive situations where I might need close to 100% accuracy? I mean, we saw last week it's hard to get that perfect confidence level every time. So how does machine learning help with that?
So a couple of things. First of all, from the Textract perspective, we continue to improve the model. So, and as I mentioned about the segmentation, rectification work that we do to make sure that you get high quality results, along with that confidence score. But we
Right.
understand there can be use cases around, maybe because of regulatory requirements, or maybe there are some sensitive business decisions. Maybe, for example, issuing a loan is being decided,
Yeah.
or there might be some hard to
Mhm.
read documents where maybe the resolution is very, very poor. So for those type of scenarios, Amazon Textract is integrated with another AWS service called Amazon Augmented AI, or A2I in short. And the idea there is you can define certain rules in Amazon A2I, and you can say, all right, if my document maybe does not detect a certain field, for example, it should go for a human review. Or you can say, if our document
Mm.
maybe confidence score is below certain threshold for certain fields, that's when it should go for a human review. And that human reviewer will be able to kind of see in a UI where there is already information pre-populated. So instead of manually extracting all that content, they're just pretty much doing a review and only adding the additional information, maybe which got missed, or which you always want a human review to validate.
Yeah,
And
that
Like
makes me feel better.
you're
A little
merging the
bit.
human and the machine. Like that's exactly what I need.
Absolutely. And we have made it like really, really easy. So the idea is you just set a bunch of rules to A2I, you just call Amazon Textract and let it know that, hey, here is my rule template that I have created, for example, in A2I. And Textract is just going to call A2I on your behalf, get those rules run, and A2I will let Textract know that, okay, whether a human workflow is required or not, do all the work. And then after the human review is done, you basically get a notification.
Very cool.
So
We've got like a minute. Do you have a, is there something you can show us for A2I or?
Absolutely. So let me just
Yeah.
do a quick walkthrough of how you can kind of use something like that. So let me start with the few things that you'll need. So the first thing is, usually when you are reviewing these documents, you want to make sure who is the human reviewer for those. So A2I give you a couple of options. You could use something like Mechanical Turk, or you can use some vendors that we have worked with. But I know a lot of customers would also want to have a control where they say, hey, I want my staff to review these documents because maybe these are sensitive financial documents or healthcare documents and
Right.
so on. So you can create like a private team, for example, and you can add your own staff to those. And I have already done that. So I have set up a private team. Once you have that, the next step is you just go create a human review workflow, and you
Oh,
can
that's
just
cool.
define a couple of conditions, right? So in this case, if I click on it, I have already created one that I'll just use. But if I can go ahead and click on the couple of things that you set up is you just give your human workflow a name, you create the S3 bucket where the results should go, and you select, what type of task this
Hmm.
human review is. Is this coming from Textract? Or, A2I has integration, for example, with recognition. So you can just use with a couple of those ways. In this case,
awesome.
we're focusing on Textract. So once you define a couple of these rules. So in this case, I'm actually going to use an example where I will say trigger a human review, and I'm actually going to use this sample document that you're seeing here. And you can
Hmm.
see here the mail address is kind of interesting, right? We intentionally put this blurry text, crossed it, and make it really tricky. Uh, so we're saying, all right, if you don't detect, the mail address, or if the confidence score is, let's say, not between 0 and 99, in that case I want the human review. So which what I'm saying is it has to be 100%, or it should go for a human review.
So just to repeat what we're doing there, right? So just to make sure that we're all following on the same page there. So we have a client, right? So my client is going to be making a call through Textract,
Yep.
and then Textract talks to A2I, like you're kind of setting up right now. Then you create some rules, which are right here. And then you say, if this happens, then you want to throw that to, well, one of us humans, right? Happy face. And then if that, and then the human is going to provide, well, I guess the human is going to provide back the answer, which is then going to be thrown into S3, which the client can now go and fetch. Is that right?
You got it. You got it.
Awesome.
Absolutely. So I have actually already created this workflow. So I'll just, skip this one. So I'm actually going to go and I have, deployed some of those, like some Lambdas, etc. The things that, will get those notification and so on. And we can send the link actually to this demo solution that I'm going to be using for this one, which has those basic lambdas, etc. So what I'm going to do is,
quick question from the chat. It says, so why do you need to go to A2I? So IR to learn was asking that. So going to A2I is because we are setting up these rules, right? So if these rules are met, if I'm not 99% confidence, if I'm below 99% of confidence, I need a human to review this. If you're okay with lower, if you're okay, if it's higher, it's going to reply directly back to the client.
So
right?
John, if Textract told me that it was 87% confident that what it was looking at was an address, and you have a rule that's set up that says, nope, I need it to be 99% positive that that number I'm looking at is an address. That could be an example of a time when you would want to say, let's send this over to A2I, where a human will look at it and can say, yep, that's an address, or no, it's not.
Yep.
right.
Yep.
Okay.
Or you could have a field, for example, where maybe you're going to make some transfer some money. Maybe there is some account information, right? And you say,
Sure.
hey, all the other information should be extracted, but this one field, yes, Textract will get it, but I still want a human to kind of double check that.
Awesome. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. So I have as I mentioned, this sample document, which is actually a PDF document with 2 pages. So think of this, maybe you get, a W2, or maybe a PDF document with, tens of W2s, and you want to, process all of those. So I'm just going to use this PDF document with sort of 2 pages for employment application. I'll just go ahead and upload that to the S3 bucket.
The chat is talking about alien handwriting samples, and I'm trying not to laugh. It's like, yes. This is the best.
So what's going to happen is, once I upload this to the S3 bucket, we have defined a trigger on S3. So it's going to trigger a Lambda function. What Lambda function is going to do is, John, as you described the workflow earlier, so S3 is calling a Lambda. Lambda is going to call, and in this case, we're using a step function to create a workflow. So the first step is, we'll call start the step function, which is the very first step is called Textract. So, and as part of that call, it's going to say, hey, I have a workflow that I have created. So Textract will then call A2I after extracting all the content out of this document. And then A2I will run the rules and say, does a human review is needed or not? In this case, based on how I have configured the rules, we should expect to get a human workflow kicked off. And here is the portal that you get as a human review. So this is what you get from the A2I. So I'm logged in here, and in this case, when I refresh, you see I get our task as a human worker. So now I can go ahead and click on Start Working. And what I should see is the document that we send, one of the pages for that document, along with all the text and data that Textract extracted. And we'll see some template and some options, which as a human reviewer, then I can go and fill in. So in this case, you can see it pre-populated things like phone number, home address, and full name, etc. that Textract extracted. And in case of mail address, as I said, we really worked hard and put very high confidence score to trigger this rule. So this mail address is empty. I can now go ahead and, for example, put this any street, and I can go ahead and click. So in this case, let me just hit submit. All right, sorry about that. The next one, once I finish this document, because the PDF document I send had 2 pages, you can see I automatically, as a human reviewer, get the next task saying, all right, now I have to, I can review this one. So I can go ahead and now I can select, and let's just put any town, USA. And I actually have to look a little bit down on the screen to hit submit. All right, so now because I have done as a human reviewer, finish both of these pages, now A2I would notify that, hey, the task is complete, and it will trigger a Lambda function, which will take the results for both of these, and it can generate an output for us. So let me go back to the S3 bucket and go back to the root of it. And you can see here we have a complete folder. If I go to that one, I should see a folder for that specific document that I had uploaded, which has the similar naming convention. And there is a document called output.csv. So even though Textract returned the whole JSON with all the distant information, that lambda is in this case is showing that you process the JSON and let's just extract only the key values that we're interested in. So let me just click on the output CSV. And it's just waiting for Excel to open that CSV. Let me bring that over to the screen.
While we're waiting for it, Kashif, in the event that a human can't validate a field, what does A2I do?
So as you saw as a worker, when I saw the screen, if Textract couldn't detect something or within that confidence score range, it just goes to that human review, right? So as a human reviewer, you saw I added and updated the information for that field, for example. So in this case, you can see this is what happened, right? So that in this case, Textract detected these first three. So we're saying, hey, this is what the AI detected for you. And then we use the human's assistance.
Tiny bit bigger.
Yep, absolutely. So in this case,
I don't have a huge screen like everyone else, so can't see anything.
Yeah, no, I hear you. So let's see.
Awesome.
So in this case, you can see we have the first three fields, which the Textract detected. And then we were able to, as a human reviewer, this is the information that I had entered for the mail address. And the same thing for the other page, where you get the first three pieces of information, which Textract automatically extracted. And then rest is telling you, hey, this is what the human has validated as well.
Awesome. Oh, that's awesome. So that's a really good workflow that we just looked at right now. So really, so many good things covered today. I want to stop here, right? We have 3 minutes left, and I absolutely want to go through my next tiny section. Thank you so much for all that information, Kashif. That was really interesting. So thank you for coming on the show. Now, to make sure that no one here loses the information and actually paid attention to what we were saying during this entire thing, we're going to go over some questions and see if you were actually paying attention.
You cannot blame being abducted by aliens as an excuse for not getting them.
Switch over to quiz show, and let's see if the first question is going to appear here. Let's see that. Oh, there it is. So the way it works, you guys paste the 1, 2, 3, 4, the number you think is the answer, paste it in the chat, and then you're going to make that little screen move as it's going. So 1, 2, 3, or 4, not anything else. Don't try to make it fancy. Just the numbers. And let's see. Which of the following is not an example of Textract use case? Search index for videos archive, create smart searches, build. Ooh, this is moving around. That's awesome. Okay, well, we're going to give it 5 more seconds. Just censor something. Just go for it. And there it is. Okay, so apparently everyone thinks it's a search index for video archives. Is that right, Kashif? Is that the right answer?
That's correct. That's correct.
Awesome. So, great. So next question. Next question. Gonna show up. Almost coming. Okay, this is just a true or false. 1 or 2. If you want to extract text from a custom form, you must first train the Textract model so it can better understand your documents format. We got a 3 in the chat. I think the rules are 1 or 2. False also work. You can type it out. It works too. For true also work, right? False may not be the answer. Okay, so apparently everyone thinks it's false. And is that the right answer, Kashif?
Absolutely. That's the fun part, right? Like you don't have to train any models. You just, get the SDK and, bring your documents and start using Textract. So absolutely, you're right.
Awesome. So next question. I think that one is a long one. Let's see.
We need a full entire show. We're gonna have to
I
extend
know,
this.
right?
Yeah.
So now you're supposed to select 3 answers. So to select 3 answers, let's say 1, 2, and 3 are the right one. You send 1, you send then 2, and then you send 3. So that's how it will work. So 1, 2, 3, or 4, you need 3. So you have 25% chance of being wrong, I think. My math right?
What's your confidence level on that, John?
100%, 100 always. Even if I'm wrong. That's what humans do, right?
Even if I'm wrong.
Yeah. That's why I need the machine. The machine is going to help me.
I'm loving seeing all these answers. I'm serious though. We need a whole another show for aliens. I'm not kidding. I don't know who I need to talk to, but.
All right, so let's stop that right there. So we have, well, 2 of them here. What were the answers here, Kashif?
So 2,
So
3, and
which-
4 are the correct answers because whether
That's
it's
good.
checkbox, radio buttons, or key values or table, that's what Textract can do very easily for you, where traditional OCR methods struggle to do those or don't do those.
Awesome. Yeah, exactly. I think everyone got that right. So that's good. No one said
Yeah.
1. That's perfect. Okay, so next question. Oh yeah, the alien show might be John's handwriting Textract. Definitely. I can't write at all. So, all right. Oh, I'm blocking this. There we go. So this is a single answer this time. So 1, 2, 3, or 4. This is a long one. Which of the following is a common use case for integrating Amazon Textract with Amazon A2I? Looks right now, it seems like the percentage of confidence of the humans is pretty high.
Thank you for posting those in the chat, by the way.
Earthlings, I'm sorry.
Earthling. Yeah.
Earthlings.
What's up, Earthling?
That is awesome. Okay. So 94% on number 2. Is that the right answer?
That's the one.
Cool. Good job, everyone. So our last question, I believe. If I count that right.
Yep.
Pretty bad at math, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. So,
Okay, I'm pretty sure I just thanked a bot in the chat.
So one single answer this time, and then if you paid attention and looked at what I put and wrote on the board a little bit earlier, and that may give you the answer right now.
Apparently, I need.
I
to
actually circled that and wrote, "Remember this." I don't know why I did that. Maybe I knew about the question that was coming up.
Like you knew.
It's like I knew. It's a hard one. It's API question. This is
Yeah.
Okay. We're debating between 2 of them right now. Oh, number 1 is getting a little bit higher up and back and up. Oh, this is a close race. Nope, not anymore. That's it. I like watching those things. That's awesome. Okay, so what is the answer here? Let's see.
So absolutely. In this case, we said it's latency sensitive. So you could use sync API, which first 2 were both sync. And I know this was tricky one because we said we also want to extract table. So that's why the answer was the first one, analyze document.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Cool.
Okay, you guys. Well, that was fun. I didn't know you could laugh so hard during a quiz. But like we promised in the very beginning of the show, we really want you guys to walk away with some hands-on practice if you're into that kind of thing. So between now and next week, we do want to challenge you to check out just a couple of hands-on resources. The first one takes a closer look at the Amazon Textract code samples in GitHub. Kashif walked us through a couple, but there's some more in there that you might find interesting if you want to play around. The second has two options, and depending on what you're looking for, you can pick the first or the second. For those who want a little bit more of a walkthrough, we've got some tutorials that you can find in the documentation on Amazon Textract. And then a slightly more advanced option would be to walk through one of our tech stack projects on GitHub.
So awesome.
I think that takes us to the end.
Yeah, I think so
I think
too.
we're done.
So, all right. That takes us really, well, that's the end of our show. So thank you, Kashif, again for joining us today.
Thank you.
And teaching us all about Textract. That was really great. And also thank you for everyone for sticking with us all the way to the end and being so active in the chat. We love that. We love the questions. I hope we answered most of them. Yeah, exactly. And then, so you definitely make this show interesting. So please keep on coming back and then asking us all of these questions. We love it. Next week, we will be building off of the fact that we can use Textract to extract text and taking it one step further by showing you how to use Amazon Comprehend to analyze that text. So if you're interested in sentiment analysis or ways to find greater insight from text, then definitely don't miss the next episode.
Yes, so we will be back again for that next Thursday, like John said, either 4 p.m. Pacific time or 7 p.m. Eastern time. I really hope to see all you guys then. Thank you so much.
All right.
Later,
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.